For your correct perception of me, brother. I appreciate correct perceptions. I finally gotten to the point that I know how to recognize one when I hear one. You know what I'm saying? It's a trip. The Course in Miracles is so simple, but it's just so different that we miss it all the time. You know, and it's just amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. So welcome to Facebook Live. I'm Earl Purdy, and I want to welcome you to Facebook Live, A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles is a course in true perception. It's a course in correct perception. The Course in Miracles is a course in how to see things another way that will give you peace and give you happiness and give you joy. The Course in Miracles teaches you how to see whatever you're going through in a way that you can have more peace about it. The Course in Miracles has the purpose of correcting our interpretations and meanings of the things that are happening in our life so that we can have more peace and joy about it. The Course in Miracles, the purpose of A Course in Miracles is to give us new interpretations of everything that's happening in our life so that we can have more happiness and we can have more peace. The Course in Miracles is about how do we let go of anger, guilt, grievances in the past. How do we let go of sickness and how do we let go of pain? The Course in Miracles is about how to see things another way. If you would like to benefit from the Course in Miracles, I would suggest Lesson 2 in the Course in Miracles workbook. And Lesson 2 in the Course in Miracles workbook is I give everything I see all the meaning that it has for me. I give everything I see all the meaning that it has for me. I give everything I see all the meaning that it has for me. You're giving everything that you're going through right now all the meaning that it has for you. Whatever it is that you're experiencing in your life right now, today, in this moment, you're giving it whatever the meaning that it has for you. So that means that the way that you are feeling right now, the way that you are feeling right now, the way that you are feeling right now is being determined by the meaning that you're giving to whatever you are experiencing right now. I'm the Divine Repetition Remembering Coach. I see my function as doing what the Course in Miracles says all the way through it. Remember this, don't forget. Remember, 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 don't forget. It says that over and over and over and over and over and over again in the Course in Miracles. Remember, don't forget. Remember, don't forget. What is it that the Course in Miracles never says in the entire book? It doesn't say, analyze this, analyze that, analyze this, analyze that, analyze this, analyze that, analyze this, analyze that, analyze this, analyze that. The Course in Miracles never tells us to analyze the Course in Miracles. There's nowhere in the book that it tells us to analyze the Course in Miracles. But have you noticed that one of the biggest temptations that you have if you study the Course in Miracles is to what? Analyze it. The Course in Miracles says when you analyze it, you destroy the meaning of it. When you analyze the Course in Miracles or any truth book, you destroy the meaning of it. So I'm going to do a section today because what I'm going to be focusing on in my Course in Miracles classes for a while is the practical application of the ideas. I'm not going to be focusing a lot of attention on the theoretical issues. I'm going to focus attention on what is it that the Course in Miracles is saying. How can we use the Course in Miracles in our everyday life, in the situations I'm dealing with, in what I perceive as this world that I'm living in? So I'll be working a lot out of the workbook, and especially in the areas in the text that give specific instructions about things to do. So today I'm going to focus in on Lesson 79 in the workbook, in the Foundation for Inner Peace version of A Course in Miracles. The lesson today that we're going to work on is, let me recognize the problem. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. I'm going to do a lot of repetition, so it's going to be intense because it's through repetition that we begin to remember things. I'll say it again. Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. So, is there any area of your life right now that you feel like you have a problem? Don't try to be holy and spiritual. Just be real. Is there any area of your life right now that you feel like you got some problem? I know everything is no problem. There's no such thing as a problem. The problem isn't a lose. Is there any part of you that has anything that you feel a lack of peace about, that's something you think of as a problem? All right? So the Course in Miracles says the best way you can really tell where you're coming from is your feelings. And so what you want to do is you want to stop lying to yourself, because when you deceive yourself, that's when you have pain. The Course in Miracles says pain is self-deception. Pain is self-deception. If you're always having pain in relationships, then you're constantly deceiving yourself in your relationships. If you're constantly having what you perceive as lack, you're deceiving yourself about your abundance. Whatever area of your life that you are experiencing pain in or upset in, that's the area where you do not know what's really going on. The area that you've seen a pattern, the area that you in your life that you see the same thing happening over and over and over and over and over and over again, that's the area where you are least aware of what you're doing. So let me recognize the problem so it can be solved, because we're not victims of the world we see. That's the truth about us. The world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of my mom. I'm not a victim of my pa. I'm not a victim of events or circumstance at all. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim, no, of the world I see. Let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let us recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let us recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let us recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. 'Cause what's happening now is what I've done to me. Help me out now. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. Let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. 'Cause what's happening now is what I've done to me. Woo. Brother John Christmas at johnchristmas.com. That's where you would get that music. You can download it. John Christmas at johnchristmas.com. It's all based on the Course in Miracles. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I'm not a victim of the world I see. How can you tell when you are hearing or interpreting the Course in Miracles correctly? How can you tell if you are interpreting what you're reading from the Course in Miracles correctly? Well, if you read it and what you're feeling is a sense of peace, and you feel in more solace and you feel lighter, then you just pretty much interpreted what you just read correctly. But if you read something in the Course in Miracles and all of a sudden all you feel is a contraction and fear and resistance, then it's a strong possibility that your ego is interpreting what you just read. The part of you that has learned what the world has taught you, your present conception of yourself. And so whenever you are reading the Course and you're feeling a lot of resistance, you're not perceiving what you're reading correctly. So if I have a problem and I want to get that problem solved, so what is the first thing? 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 What is the first thing that you need to do if you want your problem solved? The first thing you have to do if you want your problem solved is to recognize what the problem is. The first thing you want to do is you want to recognize what the problem is if you want the problem solved. Because even if the problem has already been solved, you will still have the problem. So even though the problem has been solved, you will still have the problem because you don't recognize what the problem is. So even if God has solved every one of your problems, even if the universe or spirit has solved every single problem that you got right now, you won't recognize that the problem has been solved until you know what the problem is. So how can we make this practical? Every problem that you think you have is a problem that you don't recognize what it is. I'll say that again. If you have a problem in your relationships right now, and you haven't been able to get rid of that problem in your relationships right now, stop saying you know what the problem in your relationships are. You do not know what the problem is in the way you deal with relationships. Because if you really knew what the problem was in your relationships, you would have only loving relationships. So if you want your problem in your relationship solved, and you can apply this to anything. If you want your financial problem solved, whatever you think the problem is, stop right now and tell yourself, I don't recognize what the problem is in this area. If it's a health problem, I do not understand what my health problem is. Whatever area of your life that you are seeing yourself as having a problem, stop right now and tell yourself, I want to recognize what the problem is so the problem can be solved. It says, this is the situation of the world. The situation of the world is what? The only problem is separation. The only problem is separation. The only problem is separation. The only problem is you think you're separate from me. I think I'm separate from you. You think you're different from me. I think I'm different from you. I think I have some needs you don't have. You think you have some needs I don't have. We think that we have differences, and it's the differences and the separation that we believe in that is the cause of every single problem, is a lack of oneness. a lack of recognizing that we are joined, a lack of love, a lack of unity. That is the only problem, is the problem of, I think I am separate from God. I think I'm separate from a higher power. I think I'm separate from love. I really want those of you committed Course in Miracles students out there and those just checking it out, I want to ask you to really take a moment to go into an I don't know place in your mind. Go into a place of, I don't know everything that there is to know. I do not know everything that there is to know. I do not know everything. I do not know everything. I don't know everything. Go into that place right now. Go, I do not know what anything is for. I don't know what my relationship is for. I don't know what my job is for. I don't know what my spiritual path is for. I don't know what anything is for. So the Course in Miracles says that the only problem, which is separation, has already been solved because we're not separate. So it really isn't a problem. We really are one and connected whether we realize it or not. We are still one and connected whether we realize it or not. So the problem of separation really has already been solved because we're really not separate, which means we're really not different from each other. 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 The Course in Miracles says everybody here wants to be happy. They want to be happy. All of you want to be happy. I want to be happy. All of you want to have peace. All of you want to have happiness, whether you know it or not. So we're not really different. We all want the same thing. So what's the problem? The problem is how we go about it. The problem is how we judge each other's ways for going about it. So the Course in Miracles is saying the solution isn't recognized because the problem isn't recognized. Now, I've said that about, 30 times since I started to talk. I've said it about 30 times. Let's recognize the problem, and it means that if you have a problem and you can't get rid of the problem, it means you don't recognize what the problem is. You don't recognize what the problem is. So you need to tell yourself, my problem has already been solved, I just don't recognize what it is. My problem has already been solved, I just don't recognize what it is. And when I say stuff like financial problem, whatever problem, it's because it doesn't matter what level of consciousness you apply the truth to. The truth applies to everything, whatever level you want to use it on. So if you want to use it on the level of money, the truth principles will still operate. But the Course in Miracles is primarily talking about what? The Course in Miracles is primarily talking about you having total fulfillment of mind, total peace of mind, and that the total peace of mind is going to come from the way you look at it. So the Course in Miracles is saying to you, if you want to get out of your problem, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to say, I don't recognize what the problem is, even though the problem has been solved. Even though this problem has been solved, I don't recognize what the problem is. And the problem is separation. And the problem of separation has already been solved. See, that's how you do the Course in Miracles. You do the Course in Miracles or any truth book by trying to remember what it's telling us, by trying to remember the instruction that we're being given. The Course says it is not concerned with understanding. The Course in Miracles says it could care less whether we understand the Course in Miracles. It says what it is concerned with is practice. It's not about, do you understand the Course in Miracles? It's about, are you willing to practice it? Are you willing to say, I don't recognize what my problem is right now in the area that you're unhappy in right now? Are you willing to say, I don't know? Are you willing to say that your problem has already been solved, I just don't know it? My problems have already been solved, I just don't know it. This problem has already been solved, I just don't recognize it. This problem has already been solved. See, that's the practice. See, the practice is going ahead and saying what the Course in Miracles is telling you to say. That's the practice, not whether or not you like it, not whether or not you understand it. As a matter of fact, it says, regardless of your reaction to the ideas, it says use the ideas. So it doesn't matter, he says, how you're reacting to what you're reading and studying. What's important is that you remember what it's saying and then you say it. So I need to say, whatever area of my life that I'm unhappy in, I don't recognize what the problem is, even though it's been solved. Why can't I say that whether I believe it or not? Why can't I say that whether I accept it or not? Of course I can. Of course I can. So the Course in Miracles says, now let's make it even more practical. It says everybody in this world seems to have their own special problems. It looks like everybody you know got some kind of problem that's their special problem. But the Course in Miracles says, guess what? The problems are all the same. The problems are all the same. We all have the same problem. The problems are all the same. The problems are all the same. It looks like there are different problems in the world, but the Course says there's not different problems in the world. It's all the same problem and must be recognized as the same problem if the one solution that's going to solve all the problems is to be accepted. So if we're going to accept the solution to all our problems, what is it that we need to recognize? He said, well, if you want to accept a solution to your problem, if you really want this problem solved, Earl, if you really want this problem solved, Earl, then what you need to do is recognize that all problems are the same problem. All problems are the same problem. All problems are the exact same problem. All problems are the same problems. All problems are the same problems. So if you want to get the answer, if you want the answer to your problem, if you want to recognize the answer to your problems, tell yourself all your problems are the same. Your financial problem is the same as your relationship problem. It's the same as your health problem. It's the same as your job problem. It's the same as your spiritual problem. It's the same as your relationship problem. You are to tell yourself, whether you believe it or not, 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 tell yourself, all my problems are the same. All my problems are the same. All my problems are the same. All my problems are the same problem. All my problems are the same problem. Everybody's problem is the same problem. All the problems in the world that you see are the same problem. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Big deal. Your understanding is not what we are trying to achieve. It is the practice that brings about the healing that you want. So would you be willing to have your problem healed even if you don't understand how the healing is going to happen or why? Yes. That's what a sane person would say. The same person would say, I don't have to understand nothing about any of it, Lord. Just please handle this. I don't have to understand how you're going to do it. I don't care. That's practicing the Course in Miracles.
I can do that.
Can you do that? I'm totally confused and I don't know what's happening, but I'm willing to have this problem solved. I don't have to even know what the problem is with my finances. I'm just willing to have it solved. And I'm willing to say it's the same problem I have in every other area of my life. That's what the Course is saying. I want to put the focus on me actually practicing the ideas and joining with other people who want to practice the ideas, whether they understand the Course in Miracles or agree with it or not. So, who can see that a problem has been solved if he thinks the problem is something else? How can I tell if the problem has been solved if I think it's something else? My lamp is not on, but I think the cause of it is something that's going on in my car. So how can I have that problem solved when I think the problem is the car, but the problem is the lamp needs to be plugged in? In other words, how can you see that a problem has been solved if you think it's something else? So the reason why you don't see that your problems have been solved is because you think your problem is something else other than what the problem is. And because you think the problem is something else other than what it really is, then the Course says that's why you don't recognize the problem. The reason why you don't recognize the problem has been solved because the problem is not your version of what the problem is. So your problem is not the way your mother treated you when you were 5 years old. And as long as you think that's the reason why you have insecurities today, you will continue to have the insecurities that you have today, because the reason why you have those insecurities has nothing to do with the way your mother treated you when you were a child today. And as long as you think something in the past is determining the way you feel right now, then you'll never recognize your problems have already been solved. So the first thing I need to recognize is, if I'm feeling unhappy right now, if you're feeling unhappy right now, if you think you have a problem right now and you're feeling unhappy right now, it's not something that happened in your past that's causing the way you're feeling right now. It is not because of something that someone did to you or something that happened in the past that's making you feel the way you feel right now. Do you know why you feel the way you feel right now? You feel the way you feel right now because of what you're telling yourself right now. If you're taking right now to tell yourself you're not enough, then the reason why you feel like you're not enough has nothing to do with what happened with you with your mother when you were a child. It had to do with in this moment you told yourself you weren't enough. I love that line where it says, you all don't realize you can use your memory to remember now. That you could not always remember the past or think about the future. You could actually use your memory to go, okay, let me remember to stay present. Let me remember to stay present. Let me remember, this guy is not the last guy I was with. This woman is not the last woman I was with. So I'm not going to treat them as if they're my past girlfriend, which means I'm not going to trust them because of something my girlfriend did. Because then I'm just going to repeat my pattern all over again. So the Course in Miracles says, even if somebody gives you the answer, if you don't really see what the problem is, you won't even see the relevance of the answer. Let me give you an example. You got a problem right now, and I just said to you out of the Course, the only problem was separation. Why didn't everybody jump up and down with excitement if the problem had just been solved? Because that answer didn't sound like it had any real relevance to why I can't pay my rent. See, just saying separation doesn't seem like that has any relevance to I need to have more money. You see what I mean? The Course says the Course says even if I give you guys the answer, you're not going to see the relevance of it because you've already made up your mind about what you think your problems are and what it's going to take to solve them. And you're frustrated because you haven't been able to do it. You are already acting from the wrong premise, which is you think you recognize what your problem is, but you still see it as not solved. So the Course in Miracles says that is the position in which you find yourself right now. You have the answer, but you're still uncertain about what the problem is. You got the answer, but you're still not certain about what the problem is. And I'll tell you something else. I bet you a long series of problems, I like that, like a TV show, a long series of different problems seems to confront you. A lot of different problems seem to confront you. It says it right here. I love this line. And as one problem is settled, guess what? The next and the next do what? Arise. I love that. Here's my problem. It's like, all right, let me see what the hell I can do for Earl today. I'm Earl's problem. And he don't even know I'm the problem. I'm the voice in his head. I'm really the problem. I'm going to make him think his mama, his job, his race. I'm going to make him think it's everything but him. I've had people sometimes in counseling get upset with me because it looked like I even hinted that they might have something to do with what's happening to them. They call it bashing the victim. No, you're empowering me when you teach me that I have something to do with the way I feel and how I'm seeing things. That's not bashing the victim. That's giving the victim power. Saying that if something they don't like, it can be changed, and they can do it. That's power. So the Course in Miracles says that's the position you find yourself. Now, you have the problem, but you're still uncertain about, you have the answer, but you're still uncertain about what the problem is. A long series of different problems seems to confront you. And as one problem is settled, the next problem, and the next problem comes up. As soon as you got one problem, I call it the merry-go-round of hell. That's my term for it, the merry-go-round of hell. You know, as soon as I get this handled, then the next thing come up, and then the next thing comes up. It says, there seems to be no end to them. That's what I love. Sometimes I like, if I want to uplift myself, sometimes I watch the news. What? Sometimes if I really want to get in a positive state of mind, I watch the news. Because nothing makes me more grateful about the reality that I am in than looking at the news. I have so much gratitude, and then I extend that energy out to others. So when I look at the news, it makes me go, wow, thank you, God, for the blessings that I know that I have in my life right now that I'm not experiencing. And I want to extend that peace and joy to the people who seem like they're going through it because God didn't create it. So that's the position you find yourself in. It says, as one problem is settled, another one comes up, there seems to be no end to them. I love this last line. There is no time in which you feel completely free of problems. There's no time you feel like Every single solitary aspect of your life on every level is problem-free, is cool. I'll say it again. There is no time you feel completely free of problems. I love that. I love that. And what is that? What does that mean? How do I know when I'm completely free of problems? I can tell when I'm completely free of problems because I will feel peace. No problems and peace go together. No problems, peace. No problems, peace. No problems, peace. Now, the temptation to regard problems as many problems. Okay, so if you want to insist on seeing your problem as if you have a lot of problems, if you're a person that wants to insist that you have a lot of problems, then the Course in Miracles says that's your temptation to keep the problem of separation unsolved. So let me get this straight. You're telling me the more I insist on saying I have many different problems, that is really me trying to keep the problem? Yes, Earl, that's what I'm telling you. That if you keep it, I just told you all your problems are the same. I just told you all your problems are one problem. Okay, got it? You hear that? That's not hard. What? All your problems are one problem. All your problems are the same problem. Now, you're going to go, but what do you mean? I do have a lot of problems. I got the problem with my kid, the problem with my job, the problem with my breath. I got a lot of problems. So the Course in Miracles turns around and says, well, that's your temptation to keep the problem. That's your way of keeping the suffering going. That's the way you keep punishing yourself. You ask me, God, the higher power, spirit, right? You ask me for my help. And now you're insisting that my answers correspond with yours. And if I don't say what you believe the problem is, then you don't pay any attention to anything I say, and you think nothing I say is relevant. And so you keep the problem, and then you wonder why you still have the same problems you've had all the time. Well, you have all the problems that you've had all the time because you ignore the answer. What? Yeah, you want to see it as if you have many problems. Stop seeing it as if you have many problems. Use this week to tell yourself, every time you think you have different problems, say to yourself, this is the same problem. I'm having another experience of the same problem. It might be this physical situation I'm dealing with at work, but that's just another form of the same problem. It might be the physical situation I'm dealing with my body, but that's just another form of the same problem of separation. It might look like what's happening in my relationships, but it's still the same problem. If you're hearing what the Course in Miracles is saying to us today, if you're ready to use the practical application of the Course, what you would do would be, regardless of your reaction to what I'm saying, you would still use the ideas. And so you would say, I don't recognize the problem, and so I want to recognize the problem so it can be solved, because the problem of separation has been solved, but I don't realize that's the problem, so therefore I don't see the answer. I don't see the answer because I still don't recognize what the problem is. So the world seems to present you, I love this, it says the world seems to present you with a vast number of problems. And it looks like each one of these problems require a different answer. You're being presented with a lot of problems that need different answers. He says, that's a perception. What's a perception? A perception is me thinking that I have a lot of different problems that need different answers. That's a perception. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it like I got a whole lot of problems that need to be solved. That is just a perception. That is just the way you're looking at it. When you say you have a lot of problems that need to be solved, that's just a perception. And guess what? That perception places you, like this. Your perception is placing you your perception is placing you in a position where your problem solving must be inadequate and failure is inevitable. So what did you just say to me? Your way of looking at things puts you in a position that you'll always fail to solve your problems. The way you're looking at it will guarantee that you always fail to solve your problems. If you think you have a lot of different problems, and if you think the world is presenting you with a lot of different problems, if you think the world is presenting you with a lot of different problems that need different answers, if you think the world is presenting you with problems and situations and circumstances that you need different answers, that perception will put you in a position where you will fail to solve your problem. So every time you say you have more than one problem, you're going to fail to solve your problem permanently. According to the Course, if you see yourself as having many problems, what does that mean? It means you're trying to keep your problem unsolved, and it means that you're going to fail to solve your problem. Nobody can solve all the problems the world appears to hold. What? Nobody can solve all the problems in the world. No one can solve all the problems in the world. Let me get it deeper. You cannot solve all the problems in the world. You cannot solve anyone else's problem. So stop trying. You can't solve everybody's problems. You can't solve all the problems in the world. Nobody can. Nobody can. Because they happen on so many levels. They happen in so many different forms. They have so many different content that all the problems in the world, they are so much, he says, that it puts you in an impossible situation. So being in a world that it looks like there's a ton of problems hidden from every direction, thinking that you got to solve them, which you can't, that puts you in an impossible situation. And how can you tell when you put yourself in an impossible situation? How can you tell when you put yourself in the wrong situation? You feel two things, depression and dismay. So if you feel depression, it's because you put yourself in an impossible learning situation. And an impossible learning situation is a situation where you're confronted with so many problems on so many levels that you fail to solve any of them. Now, let me describe how your problems are going to show up. So don't say the Course in Miracles don't tell you everything. It's going to even tell you exactly how your problems are going to show up. Would you like to know how your problems are going to show up so that you would be able to recognize your problem? Now, the degree to which you think what I'm saying has no relevance to your problem is the degree in which nothing that I'm saying to you means anything. In other words, the more I'm talking stuff that you don't think is the answer, the less conscious you'll be about anything I'm saying. The more you think that what I'm saying could get you out of the dilemma you're in, the more you'll be riveted to every word that comes out of my mouth. If you really thought that what I'm saying was really going to solve all your problems, you would be on the edge of your seat. Now, if I don't feel that way, if you don't feel that way, he says, well, the problem is, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm not giving you your version of what your problems are. I'm not giving you your version of what you think the issue is. And so you don't see the relevance of anything that I'm saying. But there's only one thing you need to remember out of everything I've said so far. And that's that stop seeing yourself as having many different problems. If you could just do that much. If you don't remember anything else today, every time something comes up, go, oh, okay, I'm experiencing my one problem. I only have one problem. I don't have a lot of different issues, a lot of different problems. I have one problem. So if you just remember that much, Earl, if you just remember that much, mighty companion, out of everything I've said so far, you will start to see miracles of healing in your life. You know this is our path because this is the path of people who don't have no faith. People who have fear. People who have fear are people without faith. Because if I truly had faith in my Creator, I wouldn't be afraid. If I truly had faith in my Creator, I wouldn't be afraid. If I truly had faith in my Creator, I wouldn't be worried. If I truly had faith in my Creator, I wouldn't be worried about anything. If I truly had faith in my Creator, I would not be afraid about anything. I would not have any apprehension, any worry whatsoever. I would not feel endangered. I would not feel threatened if I knew I was connected to Source. So don't sit up here and tell me you believe in God and you're afraid and you worry and you get upset and you think you die. Because if you really knew that you were created to the eternal that never ends, and that's what you are too, and that nothing can really harm who you really are, and that you would be loved and forgiven no matter what you do, what in the world would you be concerned about? What in the world would you be trying to get? What problems would you be trying to solve? So the first issue is, the Course says, you all think you're separate from God. That's your problem. You don't have a relationship with God. You don't have a conscious relationship with God. That's your problem. That's your problem. You don't have a conscious relationship with your Creator to the point that you have no fear because you know your problems have already been solved, because you don't have a sense of separation from your Creator. So the first issue is, if you have any fear, is to recognize your problem is that you think you're disconnected from your source, that you think you're disconnected from love. That's the problem. Now, do I agree all the time? No. Do I see the relevance of that all the time? No. But he just told me the reason why you don't see your problem is solved is because you don't recognize what the problem is. What I'm trying to do with you is, Earl, class, I'm trying to tell you what the problem is until you recognize that's the problem. Then you'll see the answer. Duh. I know you don't think the answer is your separation from God. Why? Because if you thought the answer was your separation from God, you would see yourself as having a problem. So I already know you don't believe what I'm saying. Because you're not exactly the happiest bunch on earth. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's so funny. And if I don't finish all this week, I'll finish it next week. Because it doesn't make any difference. Because you could take one paragraph of what I've said and apply that paragraph, and you would see a healing of your problem. If you were to walk out there today and say, I don't have any problems, what? I feel so much better after going to Earl's class and watching this live. Because you know what? I came in thinking I had 100 problems. I had a problem with money. I had a problem with my kid. I had a problem with my feet. I had a problem with a lot of stuff. And he told me I just have one problem. Just one problem. The same problem. And since it's the same problem, I don't even have to trip about remembering it. Right? Right. If it's the same problem, I only have to worry about forgetting it. But if I got a whole lot of different problems, that's a lot to catalog. That's a lot to label. That's a lot to keep up with. Yeah, it keeps you pretty busy, you know. But if you go, Purdy, you just got one problem. What? You don't have a conscious relationship with your source. You've forgotten that you were created by a totally loving, infinitely wise creator. And you don't communicate with that creator. You don't get rid of the blocks to the guidance that that creator is giving you every moment of the day. Because you think the problem is what you think it is. You think your happiness is what you think your happiness is. And you got this script that you've assigned to everybody about what they should do to help your happiness happen according to your script. And if they don't, then you hold a grievance against them, and then you set up a situation where you got to forgive somebody for something they never did in the first place. It was you that assigned the role to them. You didn't even send the script over to them and get their approval. You just assume, you're my girlfriend, you're going to do this. And what you're going to especially do is what the last one didn't do. So if you're experiencing a relationship right now that's full of love, you're being present. And you're dealing with that person as if that person is not the past. Besides, so once you study A Course in Miracles or any truth book and you really remember what it says, you can tell in 5 minutes whether the person is awake or asleep. You can just talk to them for 5 minutes and you'll know if they're awake or asleep. And then it becomes a matter of what's more important to you, the content or the form. Oh, Matt Purdy had a form. E-I-E-I-O. Okay, now. Oh man. So this is how your problems show up. You ready? Some of your problems are going to spring up unexpectedly. You're going to have problems come up unexpectedly. You're going to have problems come up unexpectedly. Just as you think you resolved the previous ones. As soon as you think you got that problem solved, there's going to be another one that springs up unexpectedly. That's the first way problems show up. How? Unexpectedly. Others remain unsolved under a cloud of denial. A lot of people are just in denial about what their problems are. Some people, as a matter of fact, that's how most people experience happiness. is by going into total denial about all the stuff in them that needs to be corrected, healed, and fixed. So a lot of your problems you don't even know you got, but your friends do. A lot of your patterns you don't even realize you have, but your friends do. There are a lot of patterns and problems that you have that you're in denial about. You have problems that you're in denial about. You have issues that you're in denial about. You have problems that you're in denial about. You have issues you're in denial about. And so those problems, I love it. It says, those problems rise to haunt you like a ghost. So you got problems that come up and they haunt you from time to time. You know what I'm saying? Every now and then, Purdy, I know your stomach getting pretty big. I'll be gone for a few months, but I'll be back. And I'll remind you again, your stomach is getting big. So I'll rise to haunt you. And then I'll go into you go into denial about me from time to time. Got it? First problems spring up unexpectedly. Second problems are problems that you're in denial about that come up every now and then to haunt you. But what do you do with them? He says only to be hidden again. You know, my big stomach thought comes up and I go into denial about it, and then I hide it again, but I didn't solve it. So you hide problems that you haven't solved. So that you can be happy you're hiding some of the problems that you haven't solved. You think you're dealing with problems that you know about, that you haven't solved? You know you got a bunch of problems that you're in denial about that you haven't solved because you don't recognize they've already been solved. So with the purpose of the course is to make you aware that your problems have already been solved. If they've been solved, but you don't know it. They've been solved and you don't know it. So you want to know it. You want to know it. Is that right? I want to know my problem's been solved. I want to know this problem has been solved. Tell yourself that. I want to know this problem has been solved. Oh, yeah, this stuff is just too good. Do you think you have complex problems? Do some of your problems seem complex? Well, the Course says that's a desperate attempt. What? It's a desperate attempt not to recognize the problem. So if you tell me you got a complicated problem, then I go to myself, I say, okay, this is a person that I'm talking to that doesn't want to recognize the problem and doesn't want it answered. So a person who tells you they're dealing with a complicated issue, they don't know it, but what they're doing is trying not to recognize what the problem is and trying not to let the problem be solved. So stop saying your problems are complex. Complexity is an attempt not to recognize the problem. Complexity is an attempt to not let the problem be solved. So tell yourself what? I have one problem and it's not complex. I have one simple problem. What? I have one simple problem. I know it's taking the problem of this issue I'm dealing with, but I feel like it's much more complicated than that. But it's about practicing, not about understanding. So I'm going to not worry about whether or not I understand that it's one simple problem. I'm just going to call it what it actually is, which is one simple problem. And if I want to see it as complex and I keep defending complexity, that means there's a part of me that still doesn't want this problem solved yet. There's a part of me that still wants to keep this issue. If I want to see it as complex, I want to keep it. So he says, if you could recognize your only problem is separation, if you could recognize your only problem is separation, no matter what form your problem takes, is you thinking you're different from God, different from love, different from each other, separate from each other. If you recognize that that's the problem, then you could accept the answer because you would see the relevance of the answer. If you would accept that the problem is separation, then obviously the answer is going to be some form of love, unity, and joining. You'd be willing to accept that if you were willing to accept the problem is separation. Then you would see the underlying constancy in all your problems. Then you see the one problem you have underneath all your problems that seem to confront you. And since you know that it's only a sense of separation, since you know it's only the sense that you're not connected and you're not joined, he says you would understand that you have the means to solve all your problems. And you're going to use the means because you recognize the problem. So it's more important for you to tell yourself, if I am keeping this problem, I don't recognize what it is. If I look at it as if I have a lot of different problems, that's my temptation to keep my problem. If I want the problem solved, I need to recognize what the problem is. The Course in Miracles just told me what the problem is. I don't get turned on by it because I think my problem is something else other than what I just heard. So I don't really see the relevance of the problem, the relevance of the answer yet, because he hasn't said what I think the problem is, and he hasn't told me how to deal with the problem as I think it is, the way that I would like to have the problem handled. He's not telling me my version of my problem, and he's also not listening to and giving me what I think the answer is and what I think the solution is. So therefore, I don't see any relevance in what he just said for the last hour. I don't see any relevance in what he just said for the last hour because I don't think my problem is separation. I think my problem is whatever it is that I made it up to be, and I think there are many different problems with many different answers. And I think my problems are complex. And the Course just told me, if you have that perception, then you're going to fail in solving your problem. The perception of many problems keeps your problems from being solved. The perception that your problems are complicated keeps your problems from being solved. Okay, all right, so I'm going to do a little quick little ending of this in a minute. Whoa, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Appreciate that thunderous applause. Yes. So, if you'd like to make a financial expression of appreciation, I would appreciate that. You can go to my website at www.earlpurdy.com, and you can use Venmo, and you can use Zelle and PayPal. My email address is earlpurdy@earlpurdy.com. Thank you for your seeing value in a way that allows me to keep on doing what I'm doing. On Thursdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, we have a hardcore Course in Miracles on the Earl Purdy page on Facebook. On Thursdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time on the Earl Purdy page. And then on Sundays, we are doing another Course in Miracles on Facebook Live at 1 p.m. Mountain Time on the Earl Purdy page. It's where you can watch it. Also, I have tons of videos on my website and on YouTube. So there's lots and lots of information of other ways of looking at things. So I'm going to ask you, if you want to have a one-on-one with me called a clarity session, look on my website, earlpurdy.com, and it explains my one-on-one sessions. And you can self-book an appointment right on the page. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to try to free our minds of all the different problems we think we have. We're going to try to free up. So at this particular time, just close your eyes and just let yourself receive for a minute. So what are you going to do right now? If you're ready to let your problems go, 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 then you need to free your mind. So you got to free your mind right now. You got to free your mind of all the many different problems you think you have. You got to free your mind from all the many different problems and issues that you think you have. So how do you do that? How do you free your mind? You free your mind when you realize that you only have one problem that you fail to recognize. So I want you to ask what the problem is. Say to yourself right now, I ask what the problem is. You can just do it internally. You don't have to do it out loud. And then you just wait for the answer. You're going to be told. And then you want to ask for the solution to the problem. I ask for the solution to my problem. Remember, you only have one problem, one problem, one problem. So go, I asked for the solution to my one problem. And then you're going to be told. Now, you're going to be as successful as you don't insist on defining the problem. I know you might not succeed in letting your preconceived notions of what you think the problem is go. But it's not necessary for you to let go of all your preconceived notions. It's not necessary for you to let go of all your preconceived notions of what your problems are. It's not necessary that you let go of all your preconceived notions. What's necessary is what? What's necessary is for you to entertain some doubt about the reality of your version of what your problems are. Would you be willing to go, my problem might not be what I think it is. My problem might not be what I think it is. So try to recognize that you've been given the answer by recognizing that you've been given the problem. And the problem is, I am separate from my source. I think I am separate, and I think I'm separate from my source. Say that so that the problem and answer can be brought together so that you can be at peace, so that you can be at peace, so that you can be at peace. You will see what appears to be many problems maybe today. You might see what you think of as many problems today. It might look like each one of these problems are calling for an answer. It may look like there are many issues that come up for you today. It may seem like there's some problems that come up for you today. And it look like these problems are calling for an answer. So what are we going to do? We're going to direct our efforts. Let's direct our efforts to recognizing one thing. What are we going to put our effort into? We're going to put our effort into recognizing that there is only one problem and one answer. One problem, one answer. One problem, one answer. In this recognition, all your problems will be resolved. How do you know it won't work unless you use it? How do you know it won't work unless you do it? How do you know it won't work unless you use it? How do you know it won't work unless you use it? How do you know it won't work unless you use it? So, in this recognition, you have only one problem, and there's only one answer, and there's only one problem, there's only one answer, there's only one problem, there's only one answer. Don't be deceived by the different forms of your problems today. Whenever any kind of difficulty comes up, whenever any kind of difficulty comes up, whenever any kind of problem comes up, tell yourself quickly, soon as any kind of problem comes up, anytime any difficulty comes up, anytime any problem seems to come up, anytime any problem or difficulty seems to come up, say, when any difficulty comes up, say, let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Then you do what? Suspend all your judgment about what the problem is. Say that and then let go of all your judgments about what you think the problem is. Say, let me recognize the problem so it can be solved, and then let go of all your ideas about what you think the problem is. If possible, close your eyes. Close your eyes. If possible, close your eyes. If possible, close your eyes for a moment. If possible, close your eyes for a moment. If possible, close your eyes for a moment and ask what the problem is. Ask what the problem is. Ask what the problem is. And you will be heard.
Time and time again, I'm left crying in the rain.
You got to let go of the problem. You got to let go of the problem. You got to let go of the problem by recognizing that the problem. So what do you do? 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 You say, when a difficulty comes up, when any kind of difficulty comes up, when any kind of problem comes up, quick as you can, whenever any type of difficulty or problem comes up, say to yourself, let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize this problem. Let me recognize this problem. Let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize this problem. Why? So it can be solved. Let me recognize this problem. So that means if I still see the problem, it means I still haven't recognized what the problem is. Yeah, if the problem doesn't go away, it just means your version of what the problem is incorrect. If the problem is a pattern that you've seen over and over again, whatever you're telling yourself about what's causing it is incorrect. So say, let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. Then for a minute, try to let go of your idea of what you think the problem is. And then ask again, what is the problem? What is the problem? You will be heard. You will be heard. Your Creator will hear you. That which loves you, that which created you, will hear you. And you will be answered. One problem, one solution. Let me recognize, listen to this, watch this at least 4 times. It's through repetition. It's through not forgetting that you get the healing that you want. Mighty companions, I appreciate you. I love you. And may the course be with you. Appreciate y'all.